Hi, I'm Grant from Blackmagic Design, and today we've got some updates on cameras, but we have a couple of other things first I wanted to update you on. The first thing I want to talk about is video assist. We've got these new 12G models. They're a new design that we've had shipping for a little bit now, and they've been doing very, very well, but they are a little expensive for some customers. So we were sort of thinking about that, and we thought, how could we lower the cost? So really, in some ways, what we did is we removed some features that are not needed by everyone, because we kind of got the feeling that if we wanted to make some cheaper models, how would we, if you're forcing people to get some features they don't really need, it can increase the cost. So we did a bit of research, worked out kind of what features people needed, which ones they didn't need, and we removed some of the less used features, and we've got some new models, and they're called Blackmagic Video Assist 3G. So there's two models, a 5-inch model and a 7-inch model. So I guess the big question is, what did we remove from the new models? Well, we really focused on the features that add cost to the design. So what we did is we took out the, they're almost the same, but we took out, they're pretty much exactly the same as the 12G models, but we took out a few things. So these new models are 3G SDI models, so they're HD SDI. They do all the formats up to 1080p 60. And also we've changed the screens. They're just a standard LCD screen, not the HDR screens. HDR screens use a lot more power too, so you get a lot more battery life with standard screens. We record on standard SD cards. There's no external USB for external USB recording, and we don't have any Blackmagic RAW, but apart from that, that's pretty much it. Everything else is the same. So that's pretty exciting. So what I'll do is I'll bring out the two models and show you. So here's the 5-inch model. There. I got the 7-inch model. There, so you can see they're very similar designs. I'll show you the back. There. So they're very similar to the 12G models. What I'll do is I'll plug one in and show you. So I've got some batteries here, and I can show you the battery in the right way. I've got some video here I can plug in. I can turn them on. There it is there. So you can see, I'll straighten it up so you can see on the overhead camera. So it has all the same stuff, very much the same stuff that the 12G models had. So we've got scopes, we've got waveform, RGB, parade, vector and histogram scopes, does ProRes and DNX recording. So it works with any edit software. The 7-inch model has dual cards. You can record continuously and change the cards while you're recording. They've all got 3D LUTs. They run the Blackmagic OS. They've got touchscreen controls. You get the user presets. They've got all the overlays. They've both got HDMI and SDI in and out, so they both do everything. This one's got pro analog audio in for external mics, and you can get phantom power on those external mics. You can also record multi-channel audio from like the SDI. They've got a headphone socket. They've got a speaker on. Both got speakers on the front. The models these replace, we do actually have, the HD model video system, and these replace. They've got speakers now, so that's nice. There's a tally light on the back as well, and they've got the dual batteries, and you can hot swap the batteries while you're running. They work with those Sony style batteries, so they're longer life, and you can get various depth of those batteries too. They've got external 12-volt DC, and there's 11 languages in them as well. So you get English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, German, French, Russian, Italian, Portuguese, and Turkish. So you can localize it to whatever language you want. So let's have a quick look. If you can probably go to the above camera, you can see it's got the touchscreen controls. All the menus are there. We've got, you just record. There it is, recording that video signal. That's actually a feed from the camera that's in front of me. We've got scopes as well. So the scopes menu is still there. You've got all the different scopes. See, there's a waveform, parade. Parade's really good for color grading. You can still do the video overlay. So you got vector scope and histogram. Go back to video. You've got 3D LUTs in the 3D LUT menu over here. So you can select 3D LUTs. So it's all there. So it's pretty exciting. Now these will be available today. So the Blackmagic Video Assist 3G, the 5-inch model, will be $495, and the Blackmagic Video Assist 3G, the 7-inch model, will be $695. Now these exclude duty, of course. So they're much lower cost now. They're such a great product for so many different uses. You can use them for, as test equipment for broadcast. They become a remote a master recorder for A2 Mini, or even the professional versions because they've got SDI, so you can use them in bigger professional gear. Upgrade old cameras to modern codecs and monitoring. But they're a nice new modern design now, so we've got the 12G and the 3G models are both a very similar design now. So use the same batteries, and they've got speakers and all the features, so they're really, really exciting. Okay, so there is one more quick thing I want to show before I move on to the camera. Our UltraStudio Mini recorder and UltraStudio Mini monitor products have been very popular. The problem is they're a bit old now, and they were Thunderbolt 2. And essentially Thunderbolt 2 is obsolete. I don't think there's any computers available with it anymore, but it's getting pretty rare. So we've got two new models, and they replace the old models. I'll bring them out and show you. In fact, I'll move the video assist out of the way. Make some space. So here's the new models here. There's the UltraStudio monitor. We've changed the name slightly. We've just dropped the Mini so we don't get confusion with the bigger ones that are rack mount. And there's the UltraStudio recorder 3G. So there they are there. Now these new models have Thunderbolt 3, which I can show you on the side there, so you can see the Thunderbolt 3 port, and it powers from the Thunderbolt 3 as well. And because Thunderbolt 3 is faster, they've got some new features, which is also nice. The older models only had 1.5G HD SDI, so that limited you to 30 frames a second. But these new models are now 3G SDI, so they work up to 1080p 60, all the formats up to 1080p 60. Also, the old models only had Rec 601 and 709 color spaces, so they were pretty much just the HD and SD color space. And they also only worked in YUV. These new models have support for Rec 2020 and RGB. And the UltraStudio Mini, the UltraStudio Monitor 3G also supports HDR monitoring. So they're a much better solution for when you're using edit monitoring. And you can use the monitor version with a TV or a broadcast monitor or projector because they're HDMI and SDI. So what I'll do is I'll just show you quickly. I just lost my video cable here, but I'll plug it in and I'll show you how easy they are to use. They're really very, very simple converters. I'll plug my Thunderbolt into the computer here. And so now I've got my video coming through, Thunderbolt into the computer. And if you look at the UI, if you can cut to the UI, I'll bring up Open Broadcaster here. And there it is. I've got the camera that I was previously connected into the video assist, now running it Open Broadcast, and I've got a streaming solution just using the little converter. So it's pretty nice. Now they'll be available now. We're just starting to manufacture them literally today. They are lower cost than the old models. The old models were $145 each. These new models, the UltraStudio Monitor 3G will be $115, and the UltraStudio Recorder 3G will be $115 as well. Again, it excludes duties, so they might be a little higher in other places. They're fantastic for high-end use. They use the desktop video driver 11.6, which will be available on our website, which means they're a much more stable design. They're designed to work with, the desktop video driver that we have for all our capture and playback products works with all the highest-end editing software, and so it's a very stable and high-quality interface and way to drive the video products. So they're really good. So they're fantastic for edit monitoring. They're really good for high-quality capture for streaming. I mean, that's uncompressed video going straight in. So we have a really nice range of UltraStudio models now. We've got the little UltraStudio, the small ones here, and then we've got the rack mount ones that are bigger. And you can, the bigger ones actually capture and playback in the same model, whereas there's a capture model and a playback model. So, and the bigger ones actually have LCDs and buttons, so it's really nice. So we think we've got a really nice range to choose from now. Okay, so now to cameras. Take a breath, and because there's a lot to talk about. So it's really, the conversation's really about Ursa Mini Pro. I'll bring out, actually I better make some space here. And bring out Ursa Mini Pro so we can have a talk about it. So now the 4.6K Ursa Mini Pro has been doing really well. It's been shipping for a few years now, but we are introducing a new model today. Now this design started back when we were originally working on Blackmagic RAW. There's a lot of research gone into this. There's a lot of new technology. For the highest end work, we've really been focusing on going beyond what we'd been previously doing in cameras, in pretty much any of our cameras. And we've got a whole bunch of patents underway on a lot of this as well. Now we have a new sensor, it's our own design. There's new color science, there's a lot of new technology. In many ways, it's the first sensor designed for Blackmagic RAW. And one of the problems we've found with Bayer sensors, Bayer sensors are kind of they were designed originally for consumer cameras. And it's done very well. I mean, you can get very good pictures out of Bayer sensors, but what we've designed, we've really been focusing very much on the extreme high end. And so this sensor is designed specifically for high-end film. That's what we've really been focused on. So essentially what we've been able to do with Blackmagic RAW and this sensor design and DaVinci, we've got the sensor, the file format, and the DaVinci pipeline all synchronized up, so we can essentially do things that really were really basically not possible to do before. So it's going to be very exciting. I think it'll be probably easy to understand if I show you a video that we've shot on it. So if we could play the video. So here's some shots we took just around near our office. The guy, about 8 months ago actually, the guys did these. So you can see there's a Ultra HD, and it's just zoomed back to 6K. And it goes back to 8K, so you can see it's a high resolution camera. It's 12K. So you can see there, it's quite dramatic when you realise how far zoomed in we were at the start of that sequence. Now that's a HD crop. That's actually, unfortunately we're streaming at that resolution, so if you crop HD, that was the resolution difference between HD and 12K. So these are all just shots that we got around near our office. You can see you can just keep zooming in and the resolution's all there. It's really quite amazing. There's so much detail. And the anti-aliasing is just beautiful. The colour really pops. It's a shame, you know, streaming in HD that you can't see it. Wouldn't it be fantastic to stream in 12K? These are great shots too because you get a chance to see the high, you know, the contrast range. You've got shadows on the boats and the highlights. Shadows in the water and the highlights on the boats on a nice sunny day. Colour fidelity is fantastic. I'll get into that in a minute, but there's some a lot of new technology we've got in here. These pictures are all shot by the engineering guys, so they've got some pretty good creative skill themselves. It's amazing about 12K is the textures. Just the texture, it's just so subtle and clear. It's a level of clarity that it's like watching IMAX, you know, it's just incredible. There's some skin tone tests, which we'll get to a little bit further along when we get into it. This is the little studio we have out the back where we do a lot of our camera tests. It's actually part of the engineering office. So we just do colour and skin tone tests and things out there. There it is, all shot in Blackmagic RAW, and we edited it in DaVinci Resolve. So you can see, so basically it's a 12K camera. So I'll turn the camera around and you can see the other side, and you see we put a 12K logo on the side so you can tell which model's which. So I guess the first thing to talk about is why URSA Mini Pro. Well, the good thing about URSA Mini Pro is it's really our new technology development platform. It's a great camera. It's got all the features and controls that you need for high-end work, but the entire internal electronics and all the cooling system have been ripped out and replaced. So the outside looks the same, but the inside has been completely changed. One of the great things about this model is it's got an interchangeable lens mount. It'll actually ship with a PL lens mount. I mean, it's got ND filters, it's got dual C fast cards and SD card recorders built in. It's got a super speed USB-C expansion port, so you can record an external disc, but we've actually moved that to the back. In fact, it replaces the rear LAN connector. There's still a LAN connector on the front over here, but we've put USB-C on the back so you can plug the external disc in without opening the door. The good thing about USB-C is it's faster and it's more convenient to plug an external flash drive on because the flash drives are really fast and they're massive size. I mean, they're so big. The good thing also about using URSA Mini Pro is that all the accessories will still work. So the shoulder kit, the viewfinder, battery plates, they'll all work. A lot of people even use the studio viewfinder. They put that on top when they do production work with the studio viewfinder because it's just a lot less fatiguing than using the EVF for long work. So I'll go through some details about the sensor now. So it's as I said, it's a 12K sensor. In fact, I'll show you the sensor. I'll move the camera over here. I've got some here. So, oops. There they are. So there's the sensor there. So if you can zoom in and get a shot of that. So the sensor resolution is actually 12,288 by 6,480. It's got obviously deep bit depth. It's Super 35 at 14 stops. The dimensions of it, I'm going to read my cheat sheet here, are 27.0336 millimeters by 14.256 millimeters. So it's got a 30.56 millimeter image circle. It's basically a 17 by 9 DCI, which is a 1.8963 to 1 aspect ratio. It's 80 megapixels a frame. Its native ISO is 800, but it works with all Super 35 and APC lenses. Now the camera will have a PL lens mount installed by default because it's a high-end camera. But and the PL mount obviously has the contacts for the Cook lens protocol and things like that. So you can get things like the lens. I'll put the sensor down. With the connections, you can get the lens model and serial number and iris settings and focus distance and zoom position, all that kind of stuff comes through and gets saved into the metadata. So that's really cool. I'll get these sensors out of the way. So there we are there. So I guess the big question, of course, is why 12K? So we thought a lot about this, and I mean, in many ways, we're trying to address the highest end workflows. And so when we really looked at that, there's a bunch of reasons why we thought that it'd be much better to go beyond 8K to essentially get good 8K. So, I mean, the most obvious one, of course, is it allows reframing shots. If you've got more resolution, you can go a little bit wide and then reframe and you don't lose resolution. In many ways, it's also sub-pixel 8K. So this is what really is nice about it. To get really amazing 8K, you really need some extra resolution. We generally do that. We go a little bit higher on resolution. But there is actually a more important reason that we went higher resolution. A lot of high-end film guys and broadcast guys, actually even particularly high-end broadcast guys, they want full RGB. I've actually got an example. I can show you how this was previously done. So I've got here a prism that's out of a broadcast camera. If you look at there, and so what is normally done to get full RGB is people put 3 sensors on a prism. So if you get a close-up, I'll quit moving that around so you can see it. So you can see this is a pretty old camera. You can see it's a broadcast camera, so it's a fairly small aperture, but that's the actual front of the prism, and the prism's actually in there. Then you have a sensor, a red, green and blue sensor mounted on the prism. The problem with that is you get optical distortions. Also you've got 3 sensors, so it's higher power. So what we thought would be a better idea is to use, 12K gives us so much extra resolution that essentially it's full RGB, and it's in a single sensor. So it's kind of a bit like an electronic or kind of a solid state prism. It's like a virtual prism in a lot of ways, but we don't get any optical distortions. So it's kind of, we think, a nicer way of doing it. Plus, of course, you've got the extra resolution as well. So this is really the reason why we went so far beyond 8K. I mean, 8K is a feature film resolution, but we thought let's go beyond that. Now, of course, is there a downside? Well, are we asking everyone to shoot with 12K, and so we're going to have all these higher storage problems? No, not really, because in fact we've done a few other advances to eliminate that. So obviously Blackmagic's RAW is pretty efficient with its compression and its quality, but we also support lower resolutions. So you can actually select lower resolutions in the camera. Now, before I mentioned that, something about Bayer. We're not really a Bayer pattern, we're a different pattern and it's symmetrical. So what it means, we've got the same amount of red, green and blue in the pattern on the sensor. So we can do in-sensor scaling, we can actually scale in the sensor itself. So you can actually switch to 12K, 8K or 4K in the camera, and so it's like you've got sort of 3 cameras in one. You can just pick the resolution you want, and then it'll let you record natively in that resolution. Because the sensor is symmetrical, we can actually scale on the sensor itself. So I'll show you that. I'll turn the camera on, and I'll swing it around. I'll move this out of the way. I'll move our sensor over here. So I'll open the door up so you can see. I'll bring the menu up. There it is there. So if you look, if you can get a shot of that, how's that look? Have you got a shot there? So you can see there, so it's a native Super 35 12K camera, but it's also a Super 35 8K camera, and it's a Super 35 4K camera. So at those resolutions, it's you're getting the full sensor and it's not cropped. You don't have to crop to get that. And there's no binning problems, you don't get any aliasing issues. The scaling's actually in the sensor. And because it's in the sensor, it actually reduces the data rate coming off the sensor as well. So the frame rates go up. So what it means is we can do 60 frames a second, up to 60 frames a second at 12K, but we can do 110 frames a second at 8K. So I think that's really nice to have 110 frames in 8K in the camera. And of course, we can also do 110 frames a second at 4K, and these are all at the full sensor. But if you go and you do crop, then you go up to 220 frames a second if you're using Super 16, the Super 16 area on the sensor itself. And there's 2 different Super 16 resolutions. There's 6K at 120 frames a second and 4K at 220 frames a second, which I just mentioned. So you've got a bunch of options of what you can do. and you select the resolution as you can see in the menu there, and then pick the aspect ratio you want. Now the 12G SDI output supports Ultra HD for monitoring, and there's a zoom control that you go in 1:1 so you can zoom and focus. And when you're running 12K, the compression rates can get a little high. So we've actually done another innovation. There's a whole bunch of things we've done to handle this workflow issues. I mean, of course, if you select the lower resolutions, then it's not a problem. But if you are recording at the higher resolutions and lower compression rates, because you're doing very, very high quality recording, we support using dual card recording, so you can get up to 900 megabytes a second, and it'll record onto both cards. What's really nice about that is there's Blackmagic RAW files on both cards. The camera, obviously, it's a Blackmagic RAW camera. But if you lose one of the cards, you get half the frame rate. So you can still, it sort of almost protects you from if you lost, if you got two cards and they're kind of tied together and you lose a card and you can't then read any file, there's a level of protection there. If you lose a card, you still get video, but it's half the frame rate. Now the Blackmagic RAW SDK handles all that, so application developers don't need to do anything. The SDK itself will actually see those two files. You just put the two files from two cards in the same folder, and the SDK will put them back together again, and you'll get higher speed, higher quality playback. But there is a USB-C port on the rear, so as you can see here, I think if you can get a shot of that, you can see down there, oops, sorry, that way, got angled that way. You can see you can plug a flash drive into the back there, and the flash drives are really big these days, so you don't need to use the dual card feature if you plug a flash drive in the back, and because it's now on the back, it's much easier to access. Now we've also done some improvements in Blackmagic RAW. We've got a much, much higher playback performance. I mean, really massively optimized. In fact, there's still a lot more work we're doing, but particularly on the Mac platform, the metal technology has really helped a lot as well. So we're actually able now to do 12K on a laptop. So what that means is, I'll just quit Open Broadcaster there. Oops. What it means is that we've, again, tried to make working with 12K as easy as Ultra HD. So you can record 12K files and you can edit on a laptop, and we thought that was pretty important. So what I'll show you that. I'll move the camera over the side here. I'll go out of the menu. Let's plug a flash drive in. I've got a flash drive here. So I'll plug that in. And I'll swing myself around there. I've got something. There we go. So I've got a flash drive plugged in, and if I record on that, you can see now you can see the light flickering now. If you can get the overhead camera, you can see that there. So now it's basically just recording onto the flash drive. I think I've got that set to Q5, but that's 12K. It was set to 12K, I believe. Let me have a look. Yes, there it is. So now I'm recording 12K to the flash drive, and you can put those flash drives, mount them on. There's a bunch of different mounting accessories. So some movement there. You can see my hand moving around. So obviously working with flash drives is really, really nice. And also the other thing is, you can tell we've got a ton of time on that flash drive. I think if I move it around there, can you get a close-up of the time remaining on the screen there? You can see we've got a long record duration on that flash drive as well, because the flash drives are just so big. That's what's really nice about them. So I'll move the camera back and get a bit more movement in there, and we'll stop recording. And now I can unplug the drive. I'll move my sensor out of the way. Make sure I'll put it over here. So now if I plug the flash drive in the computer, and you'll see the disk mount, and I've got DaVinci Resolve running here. So what I'll do, in fact, I've got a really nice, some nice skin tone. What I'll do is I'll load in our disk. And here's the Blackmagic RAW file I just recorded. So if I play that, that'll play back smooth. Probably should have waved my hand around in front of the camera a little bit more, but you can see if it gets down to here, you can see it's just playing back 12K files on the computer, fine, and it works really well. But to really show the performance we've managed to get out of Blackmagic RAW, I've got a Mac Pro over here. So what I'll do is I can show, essentially what I'd like to show is a multicam working. Now I've only got one clip on here, and I've just recorded on this camera, but what I'll do is I'll just duplicate it and I'll come over here. So if you come over to the Mac Pro over here, and I'll plug the disc in. Oops. So that disc will come up. So if I open that You can see there's my Blackmagic RAW file there. You can see when I turn the camera around. So if I duplicate that, actually what I'll do is I'll copy it to the media folder first. So I'll do it on the local disk. So there it is copying. So what I'll do is to simulate a multicam, say if you actually did a shoot with multiple 12K cameras from different angles, DaVinci Resolve can actually, the sync bin in the cut page in DaVinci Resolve can show you all those angles all synchronized together. And then essentially it's a multicam, but it's a non-real-time multicam. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate the file a bunch of times. And it'll give us 9 different angles. Then I'll open DaVinci up and I'll bring the folder in. So now I've got all these files here. You can see obviously this is a Mac Pro, so it's pretty fast. But what I'll actually do is give them all a camera number, so then the sync bin will actually put them all together as a multicam, and then I can play them all. And you'll be able to see how I can do that. So to set a camera number on all these, I just need to go into the sync bin here and give them a camera number. So, because unfortunately, because I duplicated them all, they've all got the same camera number. So I'll just go through them. Just bear with me a little bit here while I do this. But it's kind of interesting to see. It kind of changes how you can shoot. Particularly, I think it's important when, number 8. I think it's important when you're doing, I think 9 I'll give myself. I'll make that one 9. Doesn't really matter because they're all the same. Okay, so now each one of those clips has got a separate camera number as its metadata. So if I go into, actually what I'll do is I'll drop one of these clips in to the timeline first. I've got an edit. Now what the sync bin does is it looks at the timeline of where you're at. Now they've all got the same time code of course because they're all the same clip, but they do have separate camera numbers. So when you click the sync bin, what it does is it creates and I'll just enlarge my viewer a little bit. What it does is it creates a multi-view of all the camera numbers. So it essentially goes off to your bin, looks for any clips of the same time code, and then puts them in the camera number that it found. So what that means is you can see any other clips that synchronize to the same point in the timeline. So it's almost like an assistant editor running off and finding all the clips that match this point in the timeline that you're at. So as you scroll along, you can see the synchronization. So you can see it there. So I've got my hand in front. So if I play that, you can see that the multicam is now playing 9 different 12K streams. So you can essentially, if you have, normally of course you'd have different cameras, but the idea is you can really see what performance we're getting because we're getting all this. This is all 12K content. This is the same as working in UltraStudio or HD. The workflow is really nice. I mean, this is a very fast computer, of course. And now if I want to do an edit, so normally of course these would be different camera views, but I can click on there and I can do this as the source overwrite. So this edit mode will put, I'll better leave myself some space for an extra layer. But what it'll do is it'll put the edit down, it'll find the spot that it synchronizes against in the timeline and place it in there. The reason we have this is so we don't have to do in and out points on the timeline. You can just sort of throw shots down. You can pick different views and throw that down as well. It just puts a default out point in. But you can see how it works. Now what's really interesting and something that we didn't really explain to people at the time, you can see really how amazing this is, It's just editing on 12K is just the same as editing, and I've got the camera pointed at myself at this point. But you can really see how it just makes it super easy. Now what's really interesting about this is, if anyone's used the sync bin, really the big advantage we had of the sync bin when we originally designed it was it's essentially a non-real-time multicam. Because the problem with multicam is you've got to play all the sources in real time. So we knew this was coming, right? We knew we had this big 12K sensor that we're designing and it's going to have so much data, and we're really freaking out wanting to make sure that it's usable. Like we didn't want to have 12K just bogged down every computer. Luckily Apple came out with some really fast machines and you get some really fast machines now. But so essentially one of the reasons that we designed the sync bin is that it's a non-real-time multicam. It gives you more time to make creative decisions. You can just scroll along the multicam instead of being forced to do it real time. But it turned out that the performance the guys have done is so good that we're actually able to play back on machines like this in real time on all the views. So it's actually a bit of a relief. We kind of never expected that. We didn't quite expect the performance to be so high. So again, that was it was one of our goals, but we never knew if we could make it. But to make 12K as easy to use as Ultra HD is really exciting. So big flash drives, fast computers, high performance SDK, Blackmagic RAW, it's really all coming together. So it's very, very exciting. And I think that'll really help us break some ground. So it's not just all we've done though, we've got some new color science stuff as well. We've got a new film curve. Now the old film curve was kind of a little limited because we actually used the old Generation 4 color science curves on video codecs as well as Blackmagic RAW, but the Generation 5 curves are optimized for Blackmagic RAW. They've got better highlight roll-off, they've got a greater ability, there's greater consistency with 3D lights at different ISOs between different camera models. So it really, it's a more consistent kind of feel. Get better skin tones, there's more range when you're color grading. And so we'll roll this out to other Blackmagic design cameras later as well. But we'll be able to select between Generation 4 and Generation 5 color science in the Blackmagic RAW settings. So you just be able to choose it when you go into the color page and pick the Blackmagic RAW settings. Now we have a video that we can show that shows you some skin cones. So if we can just play that now, and I'll just let you watch through that because you can see some of the skin tones and what we've been able to achieve. It's really amazing. Just some of the comments from the beta testers has been fantastic, and it's really exciting. So now we're going to have a skin tone demo clip download. So if you check out our website, we'll actually have some of those skin tone clips, the Blackmagic RAW camera originals, on the website. You can download them. They've come straight out of the camera, so you can do some test grades. Now the camera actually will ship with DaVinci Resolve Studio, and there's going to be a DaVinci Resolve beta with the 12K support on our website. So once this video is finished, we'll change the website up and we'll post that so you can actually download that beta. Now there is a bit more work we're doing in the SDK and everything, but you'll be able to download that public beta and try the 12K shots out, those demo clips. Now it ships with a PL mount, but you can buy an EF mount for photo lenses. They're pretty low cost. We've got the interchangeable lens mount on this camera, so it's good. Now we're going to roll it out a little bit differently than what we normally do. We're going to ship the high-end DOPs first. There's new technology, and it's never as available as you want it to be. It's never as affordable as you want it to be actually as well. And I think what's really interesting is we're quite curious about some of the early beta testers have found the whole 12K, it behaves different creatively, and it's really interesting, and they've got a lot more out of it than they expected. So we'll ship to the high-end DOPs first, because we want to get some of the feedback from those guys about kind of what it means to use 12K on high-end work. And so that's the chips and technology is one side of it, but then it's how you use it is the bit that Blackmagic was set up to originally really support. So that in some ways is almost more important than the technology. We want to learn a lot more about what the 12K and the Generation 5 color science, really how it responds and how it acts and how it creatively works. So the reason we're announcing it now is so we can start shipping to those high-end DOPs first. The general shipments will start in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll work as hard as we can to get the camera shipping and get them out there. Now the new Blackmagic URSA Mini Pro 12K will be priced at $9,995, and I'll be really excited to see how the camera, see how people use it. I think once we get them out there in a wider range, we start seeing a lot of variation of how people use it in different ways. I'm sure they'll have some unique creative styles and stuff we haven't really thought of, and that'll be interesting. Now the DaVinci Resolve 16 public beta to support that 12K we posted, but we're still working on some cross-platform support on the 12K. We're a little bit behind. In fact, macOS actually is ahead, but we'll be working as hard as we can to get this work complete. So you'll see a bunch of Blackmagic Raw SDK updates. The Blackmagic Raw SDK beta will also be available today, so third-party app developers can download it and try it out and try those example clips. Now we're going to keep working on the Blackmagic Raw SDK, so keep checking for updates. We'll probably tweet them, so if you're following us on Twitter, you'll be able to see when we do those updates, because we normally just tweet that stuff. The sample clips will be there, so you can see some clips that have come out of the camera itself, so you can download it and do some test color grades yourself, and really let us know your feedback. I'm really quite curious. It's these things sort of live in the lab for so long. You're limited in how much you can really do until it's launched. So once they're launched, it's much more exciting. Now it's worth talking about some of the. Now this is really the production camera. It's not really a studio camera, but a lot of our cameras do have studio camera support. We do have the SDI camera control protocol in the camera for like tally, talkback, things like that. The only thing we don't have is we don't have the in-camera color correction, and I think the sharpening thing that comes on the video out so it's not really a studio camera, it's really a production camera. So it doesn't have the internal color correction, but it does have all the control stuff. It's got all the camera control features, plus of course there's Bluetooth in there. It's the same Bluetooth protocol, so all that stuff will work as well. So you can do the camera control stuff through the SDI protocol that we have, but it's not really a full studio camera. And obviously it's 12G SDI out and it's Ultra HD coming out. Now, one of the other things we've done is because we've got external USB, we have a more advanced external recorder. So you don't just have to use an SSD, you can also use external disks, SSDs. So what I'll do, I'll bring it out. Here it is here. Now what this does, we have obviously, we have a version of this for the URSA Mini Pro 4.6K camera, but this one is designed for the 12K camera. Now it's a similar form factor to the original URSA Mini SSD recorder, but it's more advanced. It uses USB-C. In fact, I'll get the discs out and the cable. Because we've got USB on the back, we can use USB instead of SDI, so you don't lose the 12G SDI outs that you did on the URSA Mini Pro 4.6. So you don't lose the monitoring outputs because you don't have to use the 12G SDI connections for the communication of the disc. So there's the disc in there. There it is there. So this mounts on the back of the camera, and then the battery plate mounts on there. You can see the USB port on the back there, and you can see there's the USB port that I showed you before, and there's the USB cable. Now we have these little locking, if you can get a close up of that actually. If you see there's a screw hole there, and there's a little screw thread there. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. Now, you bolt this on the back, it'll power from the camera directly, and then the USB plugs into the back. It comes with this cable, of course, and you can screw it down so that way it's nice and solid. Now it supports the same SSDs. I'll leave that cable there, so you can see it's quite nice. It supports the same SSDs and that's an SSD in there actually, that the previous model did, so you can put an SSD in there. But it also supports these new NVMe based 7.5mm 2.5 inch U.2 drives, which is one here. They look similar to SSDs, but if you look across there's actually some extra pins. So they're similar. You can also use the M.2 drives with an adapter. So the M.2 ones are the ones that are inside the computers, those little boards that plug onto the motherboard. They're actually very, very fast. And so you can get an adapter for those, and you can also put that in. So this will do both SSDs and these new faster drives. And so it does basically the two different types of drives in the same unit. And the other model didn't do that, it just did SSDs. Now both of these types of disks are really fast. So it's great. You can essentially you don't need sort of to mount the flash drive because you can basically put it inside the back. Now the Blackmagic URSA Mini recorder which is the name of the new model. We're priced at $395, and that should be available in a few weeks' time. And it looks really good on the back of the URSA Mini Pro 12K. It's a completely self-contained unit. So there you go. So that's all I have today. I hope you found the updates really useful. I think hopefully it'll really help people in their production work, and this is it's a new era in technology for us, and I think it's really exciting. You know, there's some products obviously with some better affordability, but then also we've got some really high-end stuff here with the URSA Mini Pro 12K. So I'll be really excited to see how people use it. Again, you know, stay safe. It's a dangerous time really at the moment. Things don't seem to be getting better, so look after yourself. Hope to see you soon, and thanks for watching. Bye.